Hello, hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Goddess Complex with Ashley Michelle, your host and resident witch. And we have an amazing guest for you today. Another one, darlings, another one. I am welcoming in Samara. Samara is this amazing breath work facilitator. Samara does so much, and there is a reason why I wanted them on the podcast today. Samara's also guest spoken inside of Siren and My Sirens. If you don't know, Siren is my mentorship program for baby business owners. Um, we got so much out of that and so much juice and so much tea. And we got deep into money energetics and all of these things. So I was like, can you please come on the podcast? And of course, Samara was like, yes. So our March guest is none other than the lovely Samara. So I'm going to have you take the floor and introduce yourself, darling.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be on this podcast. Ashley is hands down one of my favorite people in this sphere, and being on Ashley's podcast just feels like home. Like I'm so excited to be having this conversation. So first, I had to say that. But for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Samara Kasai. I take they, them pronouns. I'm a non-binary femme, which is always a fun conversation starter for people because we do exist. We are here. But beyond that, I am a business mentor. I'm a manifestation mentor. I'm a self-healing guide, and one of my favorite tools across all of that is breath work, as Ashley was mentioning. And I
Mhm.
also just use a lot of spirituality in everything that I do, and I've seen that a through line for my work is just helping people create a spiritual practice that they really, really love and then apply that to business, apply that to creating your life in the manifestation realm or apply that to your healing journey. So that's really the least wordy way for me to explain what I do.
I love it. And that brought up so many questions, your whole intro. So I love breath work. Breath work changed my life. If you guys watch the show, you might be like, okay, bitch. But for real though, I absolutely love breath work, okay? I'd be way more dramatic if I didn't have breath work in my life. Uh,
Part.
right? I just had to say that. Um, but okay, so it's Samara.
Oh yeah, it's Samara.
Do people use Samara at all?
They do. So I have a lot of people in my life who speak Spanish and Portuguese and say Samara for that
That's
reason.
that's
And
funny because
so
Spanish
my
is my
mind
second language.
filters it out. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Spanish is
funny.
also
Yeah.
my second language. And so my mind filters out Samara, like it just registers as my name. But
Okay.
I say
Okay.
Samara in, my everyday life.
Mhm. Okay. Good to know. Interesting how language works.
Mhm.
Non-binary femme. You said that brings up a big conversation starter. Let's talk more about that. For the folks who are confused, what is a non-binary femme? Who is a non-binary femme? And how has being a non-binary femme impacted your work?
Ooh, okay. These are really good questions. You're just coming with it. I love this.
I love
Questions
having
I've
guests
never been
on.
asked. So, for me, being a non-binary femme is kind of understanding the line that I see between how I understand my gender, which is non-binary, and then how I express, which is very much on the femme spectrum. And there was
Mm-hmm.
this whole period of time where no one was getting it, and I felt like I needed to present more androgynous so that
Mm-hmm.
people would understand the non-binary piece. But I
Yeah.
just felt so far away from who I was, and it felt like
Yeah.
another way of abandoning myself. And it was just
Mm.
there was a year experiment of me seeing if I would feel better because people would be, more dedicated, I guess, to the pronoun thing if they saw an androgynous person. And I did
Mm-hmm.
that for a year, and it just felt awful getting dressed in the morning, basically. And I felt like I
Yeah.
was putting on
Yeah.
this costume. And
Mm.
so it really came to me realizing that I have to dress how I want to dress. I understand my gender. I have surrounded myself, the majority of people in my life understand my gender and are willing to kind of be patient. Like we're patient with each other about it,
Right. Of
you
course.
know? But the concept of a non-binary femme really is just like a person who can see for themselves that they do not identify, like, I don't feel good if people use she pronouns, and like that was another thing for me where I was like, that doesn't fit. It's like
Right.
being called the wrong name, like it doesn't land for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I have to like dress or express or present a certain way, you know?
Right, right, totally, totally. And how has being a non-binary femme impacted your work? And the reason why I'm asking you this is because as we both coach, mentor in the world of business, and we
Mhm.
both tend to attract spiritual entrepreneurs. And some things that have come up inside of my private groups and private clients is, you know, am I doing something wrong if I market to women only? Am I doing
Oh,
something
interesting.
wrong if I market to men only? That's been a huge topic of conversation in my personal private groups and then in groups that I've been a part of when it comes to this industry. Um, I'm bisexual,
Mhm.
LGBTQIA. I'm fully all up in the sauce with all of this.
Mhm.
Honestly, these days I probably consider myself a bit more pansexual because like a little bit of everything can come on in here. I wish my partner was a bit more open, but that's a whole nother story. He's very like, monogamous, one
Okay.
sort of, and I'm like, I mean, well, what
Yeah.
if we had an orgy?
Just one time.
What if, anyways, side note. But so the way that I've coached on it is your business is your business, right? I personally, obviously, I attract a lot of women and women identifying individuals, but that's not the goal in my work. Everybody's
Mhm.
welcome.
Mhm.
Um, and so the way that I coach is you market to whoever you feel comfortable coaching to, but kind of like what you were talking about, how people using she towards you made you feel uncomfortable. There is a part of me that's like, because first of all, it's not my business. When somebody comes to me for business mentorship, it's not my business. So I can't tell anybody who to market to. But
Right.
at the same time, I do notice when there are coaches that are like, I am the coach for you if you're the woman who wants to. I
Mhm.
always like cringe a little. Do you know
Mm.
what I mean?
Mhm. I
Yeah.
do actually, as a
Yeah,
matter of
yeah,
fact.
yeah. So I'd love to explore your thoughts on that.
Yes. Okay, so there's so many things here because there's like I have been on the client side and on the business owner side, and
Yeah, yeah.
all of that has led me to kind of make like it feels different to be the client, right? Of course,
Hmm.
versus to be the person making the decisions and leading the business. So I guess I'll start from the business owner side, and then
Yeah,
if it's interesting, I can talk about the client side too, if
it's
anyone's
all
curious.
interesting.
Okay,
It's all interesting.
perfect. So from the business owner side, I have definitely felt before like my clients were going to be drawn to me for whatever they saw of themselves in me. Like I always
Yeah,
had this like we are all a mirror, you know, even just
right,
from a spiritual
100%.
perspective, like when people see that mirror aspect then they're drawn in, right? And
Hmm.
me being very open about my gender and even expressing my own frustrations with the industry about how the industry
Yeah.
is so like for a long time I was struggling as a client and I was building my business. And the content I was creating was this is how I'm struggling as a client in this industry. And if
Yeah,
you are looking for mentorship and you're having the same struggles, like we can work together. And I
right.
even was reading one of my original emails from when I first launched Moody and Magnetic. And it was like, I didn't believe I was anyone's ideal client because no one was
Mm.
marketing to me. Or
Right,
I was like joining
exactly.
these spaces and all of the content was like she, as women this, as women that. And then I was
Yeah,
like, I'm in here paying $5,000 to be in this mastermind and you're not even
exactly.
talking to me. Like, so
Exactly.
that has really led me to specifically create content around like if you have had this experience as a non-binary person,
Hmm.
I can hold a safe space for you. And that has led me to have a lot of non-binary clients, people
Hmm.
who, especially people who their assigned gender is female, but
Hmm.
they are actively trying to not identify that way because it doesn't feel good
Right.
for them. And
Right.
so it can be confusing if it's like all this messaging is like
100%.
she, and you like the spiritual components, you like what they're saying
Mm-hmm.
in theory, but then you are also
Mm-hmm.
actively untangling the identification with the she pronoun. And it's just a very
Exactly.
convoluted experience. And
Yeah.
you people have conversations about that online. And
Very
so
few people do.
yeah, so
Yeah.
just this sense of like using that to be a lighthouse for the people who are also in this like foggy place and not feeling like they have a sense of direction and just speaking
Yeah.
right to it. That has impacted my work significantly, both in terms of
So,
just, oh yeah,
Samara, are you saying being authentic has impacted your work significantly?
I know it's super, it's like
I know,
ridiculous,
right? Right?
but
Right. Hope you
it's
all
so,
heard that out there.
yes, just tell the truth, everyone, just tell the
Tell the
truth.
truth. Just be authentic.
Um,
Tell the truth.
but yeah, it's impacted me in terms of just like it helps people know I'm the one for them. And it creates this safe space inside the containers where people will
Yeah.
come in and they'll be like, you know, I knew that if I was going to learn marketing, I'm going to learn it from you because you don't teach, you know, think about your ideal client as a person with a binary gender and then press on
Mm-hmm.
like their binary gender as the
Mm-hmm.
identifier, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, totally, totally. Real quick, what part of the world are you in?
I'm in New York.
Okay, great. Like
Mhm.
New York City, New York?
Yeah, I'm in Queens.
And Queens. Okay. And what are your big three? Do you know?
Yes, I am a Leo sun and moon and a Cancer rising.
Oh my God, no fucking wonder we've always had this love affair. Um, for those of you who are new to the Goddess Complex, I'm an Aquarius moon, Sagittarius sun, Cancer rising.
I'm such a
So
Cancer rising.
yeah, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
I enjoy the cry. I
Yes,
enjoy letting it out.
100%.
I love it. It's like a like vomiting up the emotions. I like it. It makes me feel good.
So good.
Um,
Cathartic.
yeah, seriously. And so while we're on the topic of feeling safe inside of these group places, I think it's important to note that you and I met inside of a mastermind.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I've been noticing that the collective as a whole, spiritual or not, the energy feels like everybody is looking for connection and community in a big way. And I feel
Mhm.
like it's because of these. And for those of you who are listening, I mean, on my cell phone, I'm talking about, it's the age of Aquarius, right? We've got all this
Mhm.
technology coming out. We can stream whatever the fuck we want. We've got $1,000 computers in our hands. Chat GBT is taking over the marketplace. There's almost no need to seek out community. Um, the way that I coach and I help, they always tell people, especially in the spiritual world, that we must continue to always seek out community because it
Mhm.
helped me so much. Not only when I was coming back into spirituality after I took a break to get a bunch of degrees, and then
Yes.
came right, and then came back in, and then but also to build my business, right?
Mhm.
Nobody We work in this spiritual community and then we work in entrepreneurship and then we work online. And it's you know what I mean? I'm woman identifying, you're non-binary, and we're both people of color. Like,
Mhm.
we need community here.
Yes.
There
Yes.
needs to be a level of accountability and community. And so what are your thoughts on that? And what's your advice for folks who are kind of in those go way, way back to the beginning for you? Like when you started realizing, hey, I'm kind of interested in this work. Hey, like what is breath work? And like,
Mhm.
hey, I think what's a mastermind now? Like I remember those moments of my journey, you know?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I think for me, the biggest thing is that in the beginning, at least, and this is going to depend on how you grew up. I grew up where the only spirituality I was really exposed to was religion.
Same.
And religion, you know, the difference between religion and spirituality can be
Right.
debated forever, but like
Right.
I
Right.
did not know how to have a spiritual practice that did not include religion
Mm-hmm.
until I was exposed to communities of people who were doing it
Yeah.
differently. And that was like a crucial part of my journey, like having people to talk to, being invited places where they were pulling
Mm-hmm.
cards or where there was like a ritual happening, and like being able to be in those spaces first required me to be in community with people who were involved in that, you know?
Right,
And it
right.
wasn't until I like, and I was extreme, and I will tell everyone like the story of how I went to Brazil was because I was untangling my relationship with Christianity. And I knew
Mm.
that in Brazil, there were Black people who were
Mm-hmm.
practicing Ifa, which is like,
Yeah.
anyone listening, the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the Yoruba, or the sub-Saharan African spiritual practice that was pre-colonialism and pre-slavery. So I was like, I want to learn
Mm-hmm.
about this because I don't
Right.
like the Christianity piece, and I want something else that I feel like could feel authentic for me. And
Yeah.
I did this whole like semester in Brazil, and I was actually planning to do a semester in Spain, and then I had this like epiphany of like, wait, no, if I'm doing a semester away, I should make it like personally meaningful for me. And I
Yeah.
took 2 semesters of Portuguese. They had this like Portuguese for Spanish speakers class. And I took 2 semesters of Portuguese. I was way underprepared to go to Brazil. But I showed
Yeah.
up and I was like on a mission, and I made a lot of friends and just like got in community with people who were practicing Ifa, and just knowing someone who could invite me somewhere or who could explain something to
Yeah.
me, answer a question, like it was literally, I think, the only reason I was able to comfortably detach from Christianity and start to see what spirituality could look like elsewhere, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Isn't it insane how like Christianity truly does not feel authentic? And I guess what I'm getting at is like the whole colonialism of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
100%.
that's not us. Like that's not what that was forced upon us. And it's so crazy how like headstrong the Black community is about
Mhm.
their motherfucking churches. And God bless, to each his own. But you know, it is wild to me how it doesn't feel like one of these things is not like the other when I think of Black folk and Christianity.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And like it has always been uncomfortable to me. I
Yeah.
remember my mom had us watching, us, me and my sister, watching Roots when we were like
Yeah. Oh,
way
I
too young to
remember
be
the Roots
watching
watch.
it.
I
Um,
remember an Amistad. I remember we were talking about the
yes.
culture right now. Yes.
Yes. So we were
Yeah.
watching Roots, and it like stuck out to me when they were forcing those people to convert to Christianity, and I was like, are we really going to go to church tomorrow? Like, are we
Right.
like, is this,
Right.
does no one else see this?
Does nobody else see this? It's insane.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't see this. I think the people that do see this are the people that are listening to this podcast and the people
Right.
that are following us on the gram and the people that we're in DMs with and the people that we are in containers with and our mentors and our mentees. Those are
Mm,
the people that see this. But that's why I think the work is so important because if we continue to do this work, it's a ripple effect, you know, on just
yes.
so many people and it's so influential. And I wish I had content like this coming up, you know, like, oh my God.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
Honestly, I'm so grateful for what you're doing on 90 Day, because I think that
Ah,
like gonna be so transformative for
yeah,
everyone, but
yeah,
especially for Black people who are
yeah.
not down with Christianity, but who don't
I,
see anyone doing it another way. You
mm-hmm,
know, like I literally
mm-hmm.
went to another country to try to
To
like
do it.
the, but you're just
Yeah.
right there in front of people, and I think that's so important.
Yeah, I truly appreciate that. The, you know, the 90-day stuff is quite matrixy. It is like
Mm,
it's very matrixy. I'm meeting some very interesting characters in this world.
okay.
But so far, I like it. I enjoy it. I have a South Node in Leo. So I got a bunch of, because a witch always needs a witch. So I got a bunch of readings done before I even entered into this experience. And
Mhm.
every single astrologer, healer, mystic said the same fucking thing that I've been famous before. I've done this before. It
Oh.
said the same thing. They're like, this is just you doing it even bigger. So just remember who you are. Like literally, like this is what you're supposed to do. And so I'm like, okay, let's fucking go.
I love that. I'm
Um,
not surprised by that at all.
you know what I mean? So I do appreciate it. And that was something that I thought about too, the little brown kids looking at this show and seeing somebody who looks like them, locked up hair and all that,
Mhm.
actively saging somebody or teaching their partner about crystals, I think is really valuable. And not just for Black and brown people, but for everybody. And I know me being on the show has really sparked conversation and families that otherwise wouldn't have been there. The people that like know me and one of the girls that works with me, she was saying that her and her dad were watching it together. And her dad started to ask
Mhm.
for questions about like what I was burning and what the crystal means. And she's like, she's a Gen Zer and they had this moment of just seeing each other. And it was through me being on the show. And I thought that was so fucking cool.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
sent one of my friends to watch you because she
Yeah.
was struggling. She's a queer Black woman and she was getting
Mhm.
married. And people were saying, I'm not going to come to your wedding because you're a witch to her. Like,
Ah, poor thing. Tell her to
and
DM
I
me.
was like, you need to go watch Ashley right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Because
Oh
even
my
if we
God.
can't like make those people come to your wedding, like you need to see that you are valid and loved and that there is like,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm so ready to reclaim that goddamn word. And it honestly has been a really beautiful experience for my partner. I can obviously say that now, we're married.
Mhm.
Because, his definition growing up in literally La Selva, the jungles of Ecuador, right? Like in the Ecuadorian rainforest, the word witch means something different. And obviously, I've gotten a
Oh.
lot of DMs about that, about what Latin culture views the word witch as. Listen, I knew that. Like I said what I said for a reason. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I knew that, certain cultures look at the word witch as something evil or bad or of malintent.
Mhm.
But my point in using that word is to recognize that we can redefine whatever the fuck we want to redefine. Like we make the definitions here as the collective.
Yes.
So we can change that
100%.
word and the meaning of it, and
Mhm.
slowly but surely, I think it's getting through. And I love that. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Um, Samara, I want to talk about breath work.
Okay.
So, when I first learned about breath work, I was hooked. It was like when I got my first singing bowl. I couldn't stop.
Mm.
I couldn't stop. I love it. And my Peloton app has breath work meditations that I do all the time. Yeah, I know. It's fire.
Wow.
All sorts of breath work meditations from like 5 minutes to like 25 minutes. I've learned about box breathing, like all of it. So good.
So good.
How did you get into breath work? And I guess let's talk about what breath work is a little bit too.
Yeah. Okay. So breath work is well, there's a couple things. There's like the westernized definition of it, and then there's like the more Vedic definition of it.
Didn't
So
know that. Love this already.
yes, yes. So breath work is one of the eight limbs of yoga. So for
Mm,
anyone who's familiar with like yoga poses and just like doing
hmm
like your flow practice, in the original iteration of yoga, there are eight different components to living like a yogic lifestyle. So
hmm
breath work is one of those eight components that someone would be building into their daily life if they're walking the yogic path. And so
Okay.
breath work is said to prepare the mind for meditation, which is another one of those eight limbs. And so
Okay.
you're doing your movement practice, then you're doing a breathwork practice, and then you're meditating. And that's supposed to help you have like the highest level connection to divine and to your higher self and all of that, and really to get the most out of your meditations. So that's the
Wow.
original Vedic understanding of breathwork. In the Western world, breathwork has kind of become like a biohack type of tool
I like
because,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
just breathing in certain ways. They've done a lot of research on if you breathe in this way, what happens to you physiologically or what happens to you emotionally. If you breathe in this way, what happens? And so people have created these breathwork sequences based on what's going to happen in your brain when you do it, or what's going to happen for you physically when you do it. And you can kind of match a breathwork practice to a particular intention in your
Like
life.
to
And
calm
so,
anxiety or something like that.
right, exactly. Calm anxiety, be more focused, like whatever it is you're seeking to kind of amp up in your life, there's probably a breathing technique that could help you get closer.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
breathwork is really, honestly, I think it's so beautiful because there's so much variety, and it is one of those things that, like, you could look at it either way and still get a lot out of it. Like, I think there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of practices where, unless you are willing to read the ancient Vedic texts, it's going to go over your head and you're not really going to get it. But
Mm-hmm.
you could really ground yourself in the Vedic text if that's what you're looking for, or you could, read some scientific journals if that's your thing. And you could always do something that could help you become an expert in breath work on either side. So I like
Okay.
it for that. I think it brings together my like nerdy side and my spiritual side really well. I
Yeah.
got into breath work actually when I was working in the mental health counseling world. The
Mm.
counseling job that I had was training us in how to help people regulate in the moment, like if they were getting so overwhelmed they couldn't even tell us what was
So,
happening.
so I needed you on my wedding day.
Yes, basically, that honestly, I think, is a service that breathwork teachers should offer, is like, we need to hook up with wedding planners and
Oh,
start, like,
you guys
teaching
do.
ourselves day
Oh
of, maybe,
God,
like, the day before, day of, kind of like, you have us on
seriously.
call.
I know. I
But
walked in, I
yes.
couldn't help myself. I had to do it.
No, it's so good, and I do think that's a thing that we should offer because, like, there are just moments where people freak out, like, before a speech, before
Yeah,
your wedding, like,
yeah, definitely.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so it was introduced to me really as a way to help people just calm down enough to tell you what's
Hmm.
going on with them.
Yeah.
And I really started learning it as a teacher, which is not, I think, typical for people, but I learned how to
Hmm.
teach it. And then, being who I am, I
Oh.
was like, I should practice this at least so that I
Right,
can
right,
like
right.
know
I'm
what
the same
medicine I'm
way.
giving to someone else.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing about, like, when you're in the mental health counseling world, they don't ground it in your own experience as much. They're just like, this is how
Hmm.
you can facilitate for others. And but
Hmm.
anyway, so I started a personal practice after I was taught how to teach other people. And the personal practice just like blew me open. It really helped me make sense of a lot of the spiritual experiences I was having that felt,
Like what?
you
What sorts of
know,
spiritual experiences were you having?
ooh, okay. So honestly, a lot of my spiritual experiences that needed to be reconciled and that breathwork helped me reconcile were, I was doing yoga, and
Hmm.
on my yoga mat in shavasana I would just see random stuff that felt random, that it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel random now. But I would see,
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, I would see myself in like this like prison, and then I would start to have all these thoughts about how I didn't like the grad program I was in or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I would just
yeah.
get messages after yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after learning that breath work traditionally is like you do your yoga and then you do your breath work afterwards and it helps
Mm-hmm.
you connect to the divine, I started to do my yoga and then I would add on like 20 minutes of breath afterwards. And it just helped me synthesize, like, oh, I'm seeing this thing in shavasana because I need to take these steps and make these changes in my life. Like, it helped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shavasana, man, that's my pose, honey. I love, I love a good Shavasana. Every time
Shavasana
I'm
is
in
everyone's
yoga,
favorite.
seriously, every time I'm in yoga, I'm like, just go to the next one till you get to Shavasana every time.
I'm obsessed with
Oh
that.
my God. No, I love that though. And for real, I do love yoga. My jam used to be going to spin class on Saturday mornings, and after that doing power yoga. Oh my God, chef's
Ooh.
kiss. It's
Oh,
just detox,
that
detox,
sounds
detox.
so good. I will never
Yeah.
probably do a spin class, but I love the
The
concept
yogis don't really
for
fuck
sure.
with us too much. Yeah. The
Like, that's
yogis are like,
like so intense.
yeah.
But
I think yoga is really intense.
that's,
Just
yeah.
because, because you have to hold the poses for so long. But there's a strength in yoga, and I've got like, a strong body. So I do
Mhm.
enjoy that in yoga because there is a different level of strength that you need than you do to be like a cardio bunny, which I really, really
Yes.
love, you know.
Yes. I really want to
Um,
be a cardio bunny and I just
not your
I
thing.
couldn't
No,
do
no.
it.
I can't run. I hate running, but I'll spin all day. I'll do back-to-back spin classes. But running, I psych myself out. I'm like, no, 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 I can't breathe. 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 I'm like, girl, you sure you can't breathe? I'm going, I'm trotting at
Yep.
best.
Yep.
Trotting at best.
Oh my God.
But
Yes.
anyways, okay, so breath work. We just learned so much. So what made you like, obviously, your mainstream job before you left it got you into breath work. Now you've built this like empire. I'm assuming it started with breath work, huh?
It did. So yes, it started where I was doing two just like classes a month for $22 online. Like I was kind of slowly building up my email
Mm,
list, and it was like we have two themes and you can come breathe and journal, and that was like how I
yeah.
started to introduce myself to people.
What's the name of your business?
Kasai Thrive.
Kasai Thrive. And so, how did it build from there? I want to start getting into some of these business energetics. I know I have a lot of baby business owners and entrepreneurs that listen to the podcast, and a lot of them feel like, am I ever going to get there? Or like, feel like, here's the thing. One thing I've noticed, and I don't even get me started on the patriarchy. If I had $1 for every time I use the word patriarchy and on camera and they kept cutting it out, fun secret. Oh my God, I would blame the patriarchy on everything. They would ask me all these deep questions, and I'm like, the patriarchy.
Oh, and they're
I
cutting
just,
it out?
of course they are. They're the patriarchy.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? But
I'm like, television is corrupt.
right, right. It's the I know what I'm dealing with. I'm an implant in there is how I
Yes.
choose to see it. But I feel like the patriarchy has done a huge disservice to us, and this idea that we feel like if we are not at the level that somebody else is, then we are not worthy or we are not
Ugh.
enough. And so one of the things that I love to coach on and talk about is how like everything does happen in baby steps. So how
Mhm.
did you go from doing like $22 classes once a month to selling out four-figure programs? Like what the fuck happened in the middle?
Oh my God, so much happened in the
You know,
middle. I also
right.
feel like everyone needs to know that so much happened in the middle.
Exactly.
Um,
Right.
I think the doing those classes was a nice way, like I said, for me to introduce myself to people. And
Mhm.
even now, I'll always tell like new business owners, just have like a get to know you offer, like whatever
Yeah.
that is, so
I
people
love
can feel
that.
your energy, because that's what
Hmm.
I was doing without calling it that.
Yeah.
And I also so my business model really honestly didn't make sense. I was thinking about this in the shower the other day because I was doing
Mm.
these drop-in type classes. And then I was also offering tarot readings. So
Hmm.
because I had a tarot practice, and that was something that I wanted to share. So people could book me for a tarot session, or they could come to my drop-in breathwork meditation class.
Hmm.
And I kind of built each of those out into like a long-term course, like a long-term study. So I had a course for like embracing and accepting your emotions, and that was like a heavy breath work meditation. Let's feel our feelings. Let's talk about what we're feeling.
Hmm.
That was like that kind of course. And then I had
Hmm.
my tarot course. Now, honestly, what happened was the Feel Your Feelings course did not pop off super well, and I think it's because I did not yet understand how to position the value of healing, and like healing for the sake of healing being valuable. Now I
Hmm.
have gotten a lot better at that. But, learn how to read the cards. Everyone wants to learn how to read the cards. So, like,
Right.
the value is inherent to people already, like what
Right.
learning tarot will do for them. And
Right.
so I launched this freebie that was like Ditch the Tarot Guidebook that had like 150 people. It was really wild. But I think it was again just like the people who'd been coming to my breathwork classes knew me. And so when I came out with something else, just because it was me, they were like, oh, okay, like I get Samara's energy. Samara will probably teach this in a way that resonates with me. That got
Hmm.
a ton of people. And then when I came out with my tarot reader training, there was already like that group who had knew like I was the one who
Mm-hmm.
helped them let go of the guidebook and stop being so tethered and like start to have their own relationship with the tarot.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I will say though, the thing that made the most sense was I gave a lot of people a very easy way to just feel my energy at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and that just made people comfortable learning from me. So that was my first like sold out launch, was this like tarot reader training. And the tarot reader
Mm-hmm.
training went really well until I learned, and honestly, I'm curious what you think about this. I got a reading from one of my friends who was like, "Your tarot practice is really just for you, though. Like, you love tarot and you can teach it, but your medicine for the collective." It felt like my relationship with my cards had been co-opted by, well, if I interpret it this way, is this going to be the right way to teach my students? And how much does my tarot practice that I'm teaching to people have to look like the tarot practice that I'm doing? And then my tarot practice felt co opted. And she was like, you need to have some techniques and practices that you just keep. And then there are other things that you teach. But like for me, it felt important to have the tarot practice kind of come back inward. And so I phased out having tarot students and I phased out having tarot readings, and that was in 2021, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly, that was a really hard year because I did not have
Mm-hmm.
anything else built in. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
the emotional healing stuff wasn't really popping off, so I'd kind of phased that
Mm-hmm.
out. I let go of teaching tarot, and I really was
Mm-hmm.
like, what am I doing with this business anymore? Like it was a big kind of like crisis. I read it as a crisis at that time, so I was like, I know I want to be an entrepreneur, I just don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was also when I was in this $5,000 mastermind and was getting misgendered all the time and was angry. And
Was
so
that
I
the one I met you
started,
in?
no, this was a different one.
That was a different
Um,
one.
we
Okay.
met in a, oh, we did. No, no, no. This wasn't the one that I met you in.
Uh, okay.
Um,
I've done a
but
lot of master classes too. So
yes, yes.
yeah.
I've been in two masterminds, the one that I met you in, and then this one was before that. And it actually took a lot for me to be willing to go to a mastermind again because of
Yeah.
this first experience.
Yeah, of
And it
course.
was kind of like, I will not share like who it came from because
Of
I think
course.
it's
Of
like,
course.
respect. But I was so frustrated with the industry. And then my content creation started to shift to, if you're trying to run a business and you're marketing this way, this is how you could potentially be harming people. And again, without knowing it, I was positioning myself as someone who was like, who had thoughts and authority on business. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I, but I was really just angry and telling
Yeah.
everyone what I was angry about, which again,
Again, your
you
authenticity
know,
helped bring in the right people.
when in doubt, tell
Exactly.
the truth. Like just tell the truth.
Always. Always. I
So
love
I
it.
was like telling everyone this is terrible and you shouldn't do it and this is my experience, and really from this place of like, and like two things. Like if you are a client in this space and it hurts, like I see you. And if you are
Yeah.
a business owner in this space and it hurt and you're doing this, like you need to find another
You got to
way.
do better. Yeah.
You got to do better. And so then I launched a one-to-one like mentorship for people who had businesses who wanted to learn how to do it in this like just more, in my mind, like more just, like more equitable, safer space type of way. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was how I started to get money coming back into the business, honestly. And those one-to-one people were amazing. And that was kind of just like my through line while I figured out what else I was going to do. And I felt really called to just keep speaking to the marginalized people, the queer people, the people who are like struggling to find their place in the spiritual industry. And that
Yeah.
eventually birthed Moody and Magnetic. So
Yeah.
really it was like me just continuing to share what was present for me and what was like the thing that I felt like maybe I'm the only one talking about it, but maybe that's why I have to say it, kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And as I
Right.
said more of that, people who couldn't find this conversation anywhere else came to have the conversation with me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, I love that. So I want to go back to what you were saying about what your friend said about having like practices for yourself.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good point. So one thing I've learned, I guess, as I have grown my expertise in the spiritual realm, if you will.
Mhm.
There are things that I love to do for others, and then there are things that I don't. And maybe that may have been what your friend was saying, right? So I'm Reiki certified. I've taken a bunch of Reiki clients, but I don't offer it because Reiki for me is and was a huge energy drain. I think it's the empath in me,
Mhm.
and I would do all my cleansing before, I would do all my cleansing after. I just feel so much. So like when I'm like tapped into that Reiki, that person on the Reiki table, I can feel all their shit. And it's
Yeah.
kind of a lot sometimes, especially when they're not ready to go there, you know? Um, so I totally get that. And so for you, maybe that was tarot. Maybe tarot is that practice that's for you. I love teaching tarot, but I feel like you love teaching what you're teaching. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you teach this like mix between like breath work and like business and like being who you are and emotional regulation and understanding what it means when you're in dysregulation or when you're in disharmony.
Mm.
Like that's what comes across to me when I see your stuff pop up in socials. Is that accurate?
Yes, and that is a voice I really had to find. And again, it was like a
Mm-hmm.
voice that I had to learn that that was important. Like for me, I think
Mm-hmm.
tarot, it was like, well, everyone knows, like I said, this is tangible for people, people get it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is already like a market for
Mm-hmm.
learning tarot, getting tarot sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was tangible and easy for me conceptually, but it was helpful to have someone just tell me like, but that's not your medicine, like that you give.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was this journey of being like, oh, what I actually want to give is valid and people want it from me and like I
Right,
can do
right.
that, you know?
I love that you said that that was a voice that you had to find because I don't think people realize that, especially like baby entrepreneurs. I don't think they get that. Like the way you start might not be the way you finish this bitch out. Like being
Yeah.
a business mentor was never on the docket for me. It was nothing I even thought about. And then
Mhm.
the more I got into it and the more that I realized I love strategy, I love launching, I love creation, like offer creation. Oh my God, I get so fucking excited. And I love helping other people see their business through like other lenses, right? And like
Mhm.
watching them actively in a breakthrough moment, it's the bee's knees.
Yes.
Never would have known that was going to be a thing. And so sometimes we have to find our voice, and it's okay for us to play in the matrix to find that voice, you know?
Yes. Honestly, I'm so curious how you like how did you become a business mentor? What when did that call come to you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I started out doing tarot and astrology readings,
Mhm.
and then I launched my first mastermind group called the Divinity Series. Shout out to the OGs
Oh, I
listening.
remember seeing that.
Yes, yes, yes. And the Divinity Series is essentially spiritual boot camp. It's coming back 2.0 in a whole new way very soon here. But I launched that, and inside of the Divinity series, I noticed I probably launched it 6 or 7 times. Is very successful, but I noticed as people were graduating, they were wanting to start their business. It was just
Mm.
this gradual
Yeah.
step that was happening with folks inside of it. And so, I'd give them advice and tell them, things I did, and it started morphing and morphing and morphing. And then again, I had somebody else look at my chart from a different lens, right? I wasn't the only one with eyes on it. They're like, you've got Venus in the eighth. And we're like that is a beautiful business placement. And I was like, I do love talking about that ish. And then, just thinking about how much I loved creating courses and I loved creating offers and I loved
Mhm.
like the excitement, right, that comes with it. Like when I have something that's dropping, I'm so fucking excited to give it to you. And how like people get so excited about it and the
Yes. Your
feedback
launch
I was
hype is
getting.
like immaculate. I love
I
watching
I
you launch.
I'm so excited. I just get so excited about it. And and that's how right? You
Mhm.
know that you're on to something and the work that you do when you just get so excited to tell everybody about it. Whether everybody buys it or nobody buys it, it doesn't matter because you're just so excited to deliver this medicine.
Ugh.
That is how you know. And that was the energy I was getting whenever I would do anything businessy, business-like. And
Mhm.
like you said, I was looking at, the market and I was like, there's a lot of business coaches out there. And I use the quotes because the whole nother podcast episode, but yeah, well, a whole other podcast episode. So there's a lot of people doing that. And I noticed that there's a lot of business coaches marketing to the like, I made $60,000 this month. How much did you make? Do you want to make money like me? Do you want to go dance on this yacht like me? Let me come show you how to come dance on this yacht. Like, and it was infuriating me because I'm like, you are quite
Uh,
literally intimidating the fuck out of people. And you're
yes.
probably not telling the truth. And,
Yes.
which is what ended up birthing Siren. And I was like, I
Oh,
want to help the baby business owners, the ones who are just starting out, who are like, this is really overwhelming. My husband doesn't even know I read tarot. All the
oh,
way
yeah, exactly.
to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like all the way to those who are like, I've taken some classes here or there. I've maybe done some readings here or there. I'm ready to like get serious.
Yeah.
That was like the area that I really liked living in because I think about who I was when I first started. And I remember like scrolling on Instagram and seeing some girl reading tarot online and like people were like commenting and stuff. And I was like, I've been doing that for 10 years. Like, you can do this. I'm like showing my age right now as an older millennial, but I literally was like, people are doing this? I had no fucking clue. And
I
I'm like,
love
I've been
that.
doing this. And so that's kind of where it all came. And I found this really beautiful sweet spot between like spiritual development and business development, and now trying to incorporate body development. Because much like you, I've noticed that like everything needs to be in harmony, that mind, body, soul triad, in order to get as close to spirit, God, Yahweh, source, whatever the fuck we want to call the it, higher self, right?
Mhm.
In order to really ascend, if you will, there needs to be this like companionship between those three entities. And I love that you do a lot of yogic work and breath work. Like you include the physical in your work. And not all spiritual people do that.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, a lot of your work has helped me understand
Mhm.
the value of everything I was doing,
Mhm.
because did you say explicitly like physical health is spiritual health, or is that something
Yes,
I took wrong?
yes,
Okay,
because
because I
it
was
is.
like, I feel like whenever I see you post and you're like posting your workout, but you're like teaching
Mhm.
a spiritual principle, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is how I think about it too. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy that she's doing this, like such an
Yeah.
expander.
Yeah, well, this is exactly why I wanted you on because it's like really, truly my goal. Like, really digging into my physical health truly changed my fucking life. I've said this so many times. When I really got serious about like losing the weight for myself, I made more money. I
Mhm.
became more confident in the work that I did. My channel became way more clearer. I'm like
Mhm.
channeling motherfuckers left and right. My dreams are more clear. I was
Yes.
able to self-regulate better. Like so many things changed in so many ways when I got serious about understanding
Mhm.
my physical vessel and how important this vessel is while I'm in this life. And so I'm super passionate about it. I can't talk about it enough.
No, it's so good. And honestly, I feel like the way that you talk about it is just so embodied. Like it's almost like
Hmm.
one of those things where even if someone hasn't had that experience for themselves,
Right.
one of my mentors talks about, like, in the beginning you might be borrowing faith from someone else who has more faith
Mm,
than you. And I feel
I
like for
love that.
you it's like people can borrow
Hmm.
your energy and your
Hmm.
conviction, because the way
Hmm.
you talk about it is so like solid, and like you're like the
Yeah.
living manifestation of it. And so for
Yeah.
people who maybe they want this to feel true for them but it doesn't, like,
Hmm.
you are such a great person for people to like lean on and borrow that faith from.
Hmm. Well, I also think you are too. Again, that's why I had you on. I really do. I think you are too. I'm obsessed with your work and what you do. And I think you also present incredibly embodied and like you know who the fuck you are. It like radiates off of you. You know what I mean? How did you get there?
That's like,
I know, right? How much
oof.
time do we have?
I know. I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, the key bullet points of how,
Yeah.
because trauma healing was a huge piece
Hmm.
of it. I
Yeah.
really did not have a strong sense of who I was because of different
Hmm.
traumas that I'd experienced
Hmm.
in childhood, but also up
Hmm.
until like maybe 19, 20, and really feeling like I was waiting for someone to define me and to tell me
Ooh,
who I was or
yeah.
who I had to be or what I needed to
Hmm.
do to be good enough. And like that was big. Like I was a huge overachiever, as I think
Yeah,
you and I have
same.
talked about.
Same.
And it was so much like if I achieve this thing, then
Hmm.
regardless of how I feel about myself as a person, I can use this to prove to other people that like I'm worthy,
I'm
I'm
worthy.
valuable,
Yeah.
I'm important,
Mhm.
whatever. And so I didn't even think about my sense of self for a really long time.
Yeah.
And it was honestly when I started getting called into entrepreneurship, which for me, that
Hmm.
call came when I was like 22. So I was
Yeah.
like, having this call and I was like, "Oh, they don't care where you went to school. They don't care like all these
They
things
don't
that
care
are
about your grades. They don't care about any of
exactly
that.
exactly like
Yeah.
just because you got straight A's or you got this score on this
Doesn't
exam, like
matter.
they want to know you. They want to feel an energy
Hmm.
from you and it became clear to me that like the only way I was gonna be able to live out this call to be an entrepreneur was that I needed to develop my own energy and let and
Yeah.
give people something really that
Yeah.
wasn't just like a resume, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Fucking resumes, right? Sometimes I think about that thing and then I'm just like, man, okay. Oh, so true, so true. Um, what advice do you have for spiritual entrepreneurs when it comes to dating?
Mm,
This came to me because you are you still in your relationship?
I am not, but I'm dating,
Okay.
so
Okay, okay. No, this is good then. This is good. So I want to kind of dig into that a little bit. It just kind of came to me just
I
now,
love this. Yeah.
right? Because I know that you were in a quite a committed relationship for some time.
Yes.
And now you're single, so that's got to be interesting too. And I just know for me, like trying to explain I how do you explain what you do? You know, like we do like so much, and it's still the mainstream world, as I like to call them, the muggles, are
Mm,
still trying to figure us out, right?
mhm.
Um, how do you go about it?
Oh my God. And honestly, Ashley, I feel like I could ask you this question because
Yeah, yeah. I'll
um
I'll answer after you. I have a
yeah.
method. I have a method.
You have a method?
I have
Okay,
a whole
okay.
method.
We all
Yeah.
need the method. I will give
Yeah.
my very non-method answer. Um,
Mhm.
which is I think for me, as I like now I'm like dating like preliminary first couple of dates
Yeah.
stage. And so the way I was thinking about it when I was in a committed partnership for like a couple of years was different. And I can kind of speak to each of that. So for me, the spiritual entrepreneurship piece the main thing for me was recognizing that I was on my own path and this
Yeah.
person was on their own path and my spiritual calling and my business felt so personal to me that I was almost like
Yeah.
cagey where I was like you I don't want you to judge it but I also don't want
Right.
you really to have opinions about it at all like it's
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
like
fully
this is
get
my
that.
thing that I'm doing and then I am a whole person on else in elsewhere in other
Mm,
aspects of my life but like this is my thing that I need to do for me and there's no real other way for me to live my life so it's kind of like this is going to be what it is me and the business are
yeah.
a package and
Mm-hmm.
being able to stand in that did take a
Mm-hmm.
while because this was a person who we met before I had the business and then I had all
Mm-hmm.
these like we met in college and then I
Okay.
had all of these like awakenings and breakthroughs, and I was like, this is how I have to live. And it honestly did put pressure on our relationship, but I think it was a lot because this person was having to relearn me. And I was
Yeah.
like, this, it really, like, me and the business have to stay together. And I honestly
Yeah.
feel like I am more committed at this point to the business. And
Yeah.
you have to choose both of us and it just
Mm-hmm.
it became a lot and so that's probably an episode I'll record for my podcast because I think a
Yeah,
lot of
right.
people want that and I have a lot to say
Mm-hmm.
but now these days it feels easier because I can just tell people like this is what I do in the same
Right.
way that I'll listen to you talk about your 9 to 5 for like
Mm-hmm.
the first
Mm-hmm.
date or whatever this is me
Mm-hmm.
talking about my job and
Right, right.
this is what's important to me. This is the kind of clients that I see, like whatever. This is how I got started. And I just talk to them as if I'm talking to them about a job that I have. Like I just make it very
Exactly.
matter of fact and I don't leave a lot of space for like Like, I don't feel shaky about it. I talk about it in a solid
Exactly.
way, and then it gets received in a solid.
Hmm. Oh God, so many great points. You can't feel shaky about it. And
Yeah.
anybody who's listening to the podcast right now that's like, I need to get there, it all comes with time. I just did a post about this earlier today. The more that you talk about this work and you're just in normal conversation with like your best friend or with your partner, the easier it becomes, right? Like
Mhm.
hop in on lives that your favorite spiritual influencers, if that's what she'll say, hop in on lives, you know what I mean? That they're saying, just really immerse yourself. That was one huge thing I did in the beginning, just immersed myself in all things this world. And it really helped normalize it for me.
Yes,
Um,
that's
when
big.
it comes to like, partners, especially parents, honestly, I bring them in slow. That's what I do. So I
Okay.
start with stuff that they're mostly familiar with, like astrology, right? So I start off there. And then after a little while, I might bring in the tarot. And then I'll start bringing in the Akashic records. And then whenever I bring in the records, like, what the fuck is that? And
You
then
do
I go,
have a
well,
method. I love
I
this.
do have a method, right? Because I can't go into like, sometimes I channel Metatron in the eighth dimension. And sometimes if I'm really into it, I might see your dead grandma. Like,
Right.
they're like, girl, so like,
Oh my God.
I gotta slowly, and that's honestly what I did with my partner. A big question is, why didn't you tell him you were a witch? I did. I slowly brought him into this world, and he I knew coming here, like me going to Ecuador and like telling him about the work that I did versus him like coming here and like seeing my altars, seeing me practice, seeing me in my embodiment flow was going to be a different ballgame. I knew it, but I popped his cherry slowly. And I think for me, that works. And for other people who are kind of like trying to figure that piece of it out, figure out the method that you want to figure out. But I think what you said, Samara, was key. You can't be shaky about it. It's like when you're launching an offer. Who's gonna buy an offer from me where you're like, I think I have a few spots left. Like if you want me to read your cards, I think maybe I can do it. Who the fuck's buying that? Nobody's buying that. It's the same thing when it comes to breaking these like chains that we have around being visible and like standing up for what we believe in and not being scared or worried that somebody's going to make fun of it, mock it, not take us seriously, call us crazy, like all this shit that comes with what I love to call the witch wound, which I think embodies all healers and mystics and everybody in between that's doing this work. Um, I'm interested to see what our universe looks like in like 10 more years
Oh
because
yeah.
it's growing.
It is, and I think the more that we kind of platform ourselves
Hmm.
and own our narrative, and I'm
Yeah,
sure I feel like you probably have a lot to say about this too, and you should totally come on my podcast and we can
I
have a
would love
good conversation.
to.
I like never
Absolutely
have
love
guests.
to.
A guest has to feel like an in the moment, like I don't sit
Hmm.
and plan who are my guests gonna be, but when I feel that like,
Hmm.
oh, someone should come to the podcast, then I will invite them, which is why I never really have them. But you should totally come.
I
And
would
we
love
should
to.
talk
What's the
about this.
podcast name so the listeners know?
Yes. So the podcast is called Cozy Co-Creation. You will
Mm.
go there and see I have literally had one guest. And
I love it.
so Ashley, you are one of a few, but I want to keep talking to you. I feel like there's so
Yeah,
many things that we need to talk about, and that people
100%.
need to hear us talk about.
Yeah, I'm totally down. I'm totally down. So let's definitely get
Yeah.
that scheduled. In the meantime, where can the people find you, Samara? How can they work with you? What do you have going on in your universe? Let us know.
So, obviously, Cozy Co-Creation podcast. I right now am opening up my fourth cohort of my trauma-informed manifestation program. This is really tailored towards people who are ready, like I call it graduate from good vibes only, like people who are ready to let
Mm,
go of this idea that you need to be like this pink Lulu bunny
right, right.
who like shitting rainbows all the time and never thinking
Mhm.
a negative thought,
Love
and
and
like that's
light.
the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But like a grounded manifestation, a way to make manifestation a way of life that feels sustainable, that feels like organic to you, where you can like think your regular thoughts, feel your regular feelings, be your
Hmm.
regular self, and co-create some really cool stuff. So that is Moody and Magnetic. That's coming back in March. So whenever this podcast episode is
At
gonna
the time that
drop.
you're hearing this. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. At the time that you're hearing this, the wait list will be open. I'll give Ashley the link to the wait list, and
Mhm.
everyone who comes onto the wait list gets a coupon code for 888 off. So it's just a really fun way to
Um,
thank everyone who's
yeah.
interested. And yeah, that's like the main way to work with me right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on, darling. This was such a rich conversation. I can't wait to come on yours and we'll
Yeah.
continue this dialogue. Friends, you already know what I'm going to say. If you love this podcast, which I know you did, share the episode. This is how baby witches, baby healers, baby mystics, and more advanced healers and mystics can get this juicy tea and juicy knowledge. Tag us on the gram at Ashley Michelle 90 Days. Samara, what's your IG? And it'll be down
Samara
in the show
Kasai.
notes.
Yes, just
Samara
my name,
Kasai.
Samara Kasai.
Perfect. Make sure you tag us. You already know my DMs are open. Let us know how much you love the episode. This is what keeps the work going, friends. And if there are any topics that you want to hear more of on the Goddess Complex, let us know. Like if you were really moved by some of these things and you want us to flesh it out even more, that's literally what we are both here for. We are in service to you, right? So let us know. Share the episode. You already know. Go to the YouTube if you want the visual, and we will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao for now.
Bye, everyone.
Hello, friends. I hope you loved today's episode. Make sure you share it with a friend, share it with somebody that you love, and tag me on the gram at Ashley Michelle 90 Day and let me know your thoughts. Leaving that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify is literally what helps this work get to the right people. As you may or may not know, we are in the middle of a spiritual revolution, and us being able to get our hands on resources like this podcast and others is what is literally going to make the world go round. So do me this favor and please leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and share the episode with somebody you love. It really, truly does mean the world to me. I love you so very much, and I will see you in the next one.